welcome to Packaging Unboxed. My name is Evelio Mattos, and I've been doing packaging for the last 15 years in every possible industry on every continent on this planet. Today, I'm super excited to bring you a conversation with one of the most exciting packaging designers that I've been personally following for a lot of years. His name is Chad Makerson Michael. You're going to learn 3 things that can transform your packaging game. 1, how story-driven packaging can shape every single detail from the bottle to the label using inspiration of history and culture. 2, the key to balancing ornate design with clarity so that your packaging stands out from afar without overwhelming you from up close. And 3, how to think beyond the label to create a full brand experience that can span custom bottles and even into video storytelling. Stick around to the end for some serious packaging inspiration that you're not going to want to miss. Let's get to the show. Who is Chad Makerson Michael?
Who am I? Every morning I wake up, I look in the mirror and I ask the same question. I'm a designer. I'm a sole proprietor. I've owned my own studio for 10 years now, and been building spirit brands ever since. So it's been a full 10 years of developing, designing spirit brands, many of which are from scratch. That's actually my preferred. From day to day, I manage everything from initial brand strategy to naming all the way into production until the final product is like in the hands of the client. So very hands-on, very personal relationship with the clients I have. Outside of that, family man, I'm a father. And so I love the balance between that I've kind of figured out over the years between working and then also family life.
Yeah, you've been doing this for 10 years. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
And your focus is spirits. Define spirits.
Yeah, anything under the sun that has alcohol in it. And there's multiple reasons why I'm in this space. But as far as what I do, it's, bourbon, whiskey, vodka, absinthe, liqueurs, wines, beers, everything under that umbrella. I have branched off over the years and done a few side projects. I've designed a few very intricate decks of playing cards over the years. I've always wanted to get cannabis clients in the studio, but they send inquiries and they kind of trickle out. I don't know if it's the industry or it's not ready for it yet, but I've done poker chips and things like that. So essentially, like products of indulgence is really what I'm driven to, and spirits specifically, just because, man, like I never have to be repetitive in terms of creating a spirit brand. There's the whole goal with any brand is to be distinctly different from everything else. So I really don't like to, and especially not in terms of like what I'm delivering to the client, and making their brand unique and ownable. I don't want to deliver them something that's the same as everyone else. So it's a really fun space to just do whatever you want. I mean, it's sky's the limit as far as story, look, feel, and the end result.
I always thought like spirits had a border. So, like it stopped. Yeah, wine, right? Like it's always wine and spirit. So I'm like, all right, so wine's not in there, but
technically wine's not a spirit, but I just say anything with alcohol in it. Yeah, it's a very huge category.
You mentioned doing cards. I think that might be where I first saw you, but I remember early on, a lot of your work had like these really intricate seals. I guess you would call them, right? Like they were just like the detail, the circles, like the typography, and then like I don't know, I guess filigree added in there. Like that was almost like a look that you were known for.
That's a great point. I would say I kind of evolved over the years. When I first started in 2014, my work was like hyper black gold, super full of ornamentation. There still is a lot of that. Like my work is often more is more, but with a breathable balance. I think that's what people have what I figured out people recognize my work for is they see that there's a lot going on and every aspect is touched throughout the package design, but at the same time, it's not overbearing to where you're like, you don't know what to look at. You don't know where the hierarchy is. But yes, that was my beginning phase, the black and white gold era. And I've kind of transitioned over the years to just really driving myself to not do anything else that looks like anything else. So pulling myself away from that and, expanding horizons.
Like some of the labels that you've got, there's a ton going on.
Yeah.
You've got curves, you've got ornamentation, you've got iconography, you've got like labels over labels, you've got color. There's so much going on. How do you approach hierarchy? Because it's a lot going on, but it's clearly defined, which is what's insane. So
Yeah.
how do you handle that? How do you even start?
It is a tough question to ask. I just did a talk in downtown Dallas a few days ago, and that was the first, like we did a Q&A at the end, and that was the first thing. They were like, how do you strike that balance? And, I think it's just one of those things that I've learned over the years innately. I think it's inherent. I've always liked to kind of over deliver when it comes to design. But, at the same time, it's got to be a brand that you see from, 10 feet away, like from a back bar. So it can't be overworked and packed to where like you can't read it, and there's no visual brand name that calls out or visual product variety that is being called out. I think it's just a game of being an illustrator and doing a huge exploration and really like pulling bits from like that work from each concept and kind of stringing them into one master concept. I do only often present one concept to a client, so I put all my creative juices like into just one holy grail.
But you're putting together options for yourself. Like you're exploring variety.
Yeah, for myself. And then only delivering the best outcome of the entire exploration. I mean, of course, there are some things that probably get left behind. It's, you can't have 2 custom bottles. But, oftentimes, because I designed the custom glass too for all these brands, unless they're working with stock. So it's pulling the best characteristics, the best pieces that tell that brand story into one package design to just make for a more wow factor.
Do you do boxes as well?
Yes.
That hold these bottles?
Oh yeah. Shipper cartons are one of my business cards, and shipper cartons are like my tertiary and secondary love, I think. Like of course it comes package design, and then like you got to have a shipper carton. And then business cards are like one of those things that are kind of like, they've been forgotten over the years, know? Especially if you print it right. If you like letterpress it and they're $2 a piece and they look beautiful, they do leave an impression. So I do like to kind of pitch those. But overall, 99% of my clients come to me to create the full brand, package design. Of course, the logo, that's all encompassing. You can't design a package design without the identity. Shipper carton, and then let's see. I think that's about it. Custom closure, odd things that may go on the bottle, like a trinket or a hang tag. That's like the core foundation of what I deliver typically. I do go past that. I have brands I've created billboards for and commercials. As of this year, we've got into cinematography. So now we're starting to go past print, which is the first time I've ever done this, and take it into video. So the brands that we develop, we're continuing that story through cinematography, and it's super exciting.
Are you designing for a persona? Because as I scroll through, I can almost see the same person buying 90% of this stuff.
I mean, the goal is there are different target markets.
I would buy 90% of this stuff. Right?
That's great. I mean, I think that's because you're a designer and you like good design. So maybe that's why it's appealing to you. Like, oh, I buy this and this and this. Maybe you're just, the pack is resonating with you, which is awesome. The whole goal is the consumer buys it for the look and then comes back for what's inside if the product is good on the interior. I think there is a continuity to my work. I do find that each brand is distinctly different, has its own visual, system and its own character and attitude. But there is something that binds itself. I mean, it is all coming from me. So there is going to be some shared sensibilities there.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm not saying that they look the same, right?
How dare you? Yeah.
Like I'll buy Converse and I'll buy Levi's, and they're completely different, but it's the same person.
Yeah. By the way, Levi's is like just a sidebar, one of my favorite marks of all time. That logo with the two
pulling
the pants apart. It's one of my favorites, man.
Yeah. Insane, man. So with that, you've kind of talked about inspiration and like where you're pulling from. Like at this point, I think, you've got like a gigantic bank in you, but 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like where were you pulling inspiration from for all these designs?
Yeah, I think, so when I first started the studio around 2014, I was paying more attention to what was already being done. So like what other agencies were doing, and being like, oh, that's really working. God, I wish I would have done that. Let me try to like follow that vein and create brands that are kind of in that realm. And then I quickly learned that that is not what I want to do. And that's not what the industry needs or a brand wants. I mean, I may have a client that comes to me and say, oh, we love Bullet Bourbon. We want to have something that looks like that. But my goal is to present them maybe an overarching like Western theme, but due to something distinctly different to where you're casting a shadow or competing directly with bourbon, doing something different. Circle back one more time to your question because I lost my way there.
Yeah. So Chad, like where's the inspiration? Where did the inspiration kind of start?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
To where you're at today.
Yeah, so it started kind of mimicking things, but then I quickly moved away from that. But the inspiration now really is contingent on the story of the brand. So I always start with, I'm huge on copywriting. I love to flesh out the story in verbally first. I often even start most of my brands with a slogan. So like, Warbringer is a very Western brand that I'm actually co-partner in. That was completed in 2016. That slogan that I ended up pitching to him was the cock of the walk, which led to the attitude of the brand, which led to the mascot. And so that inspiration specifically comes from, antique ammo boxes and Western, old shipping crates. And there's just a huge amalgamation of things. I find that the more inspiration you have from more diverse sources, if you compress those in, it just gives you something in the end that's much more different than what you typically see. And now I honestly, like, just in terms of knowing the competition, I do look at other package design, know what's going out there, know what trends are, but I do that to move away from those trends.
Sure.
So I think over the years, it's just it's everything from textiles to patterns to woods. Very rarely, if honestly, almost never do I look at other package design for inspiration. I think I have a big love for vintage ephemera. So, back when craft was truly craft and everything was set by hand and everything was done by hand, all illustrations and type and leaflets, booklets. And so a lot of that, I do have an innate love for that. So that does kind of come through, I think, in everything, honestly.
Yeah. You do a ton of custom bottles, right? Where you've got text coming off the glass. You've got, graphic elements that are pushed in or textures. How do you even start? Are you doing the CAD side of this? Are you sketching it out?
Yeah. So from the beginning, for glass, let's start with, bespoke glass, those, the shapes and the forms and characteristics of those bottles, again, are a reflection of the story. And, it could come from, as I said, like textiles or patterns or tapestries. It could come from a feeling or the character of, let's say, I just did a brand for a tequila that I'm working on now. It's all about unity. It's all about two cultures coming together. And so we're using this X mechanic throughout the whole brand, but doing it in a way where it's not that with like stuff, like in each corner, very different. And so, everything has its own place and has its own kind of beginning in terms of the custom glass. But yes, I handle the from sketching. It goes into the computer. I do front, side, back rendering of the bottle. And then I do have a team outside of myself, just not another designer. And so I pass those files off and they create the CAD. Client approves it. Then it goes right to glass. Then I manage glass and sampling until they approve the physical vessel.
Okay. And then when so like, let's say I'm launching a spirits brand, like, do you have an idea of cost on some of these things at this point where you're like, yeah, you can't even afford this, dude. We can do this.
Yeah, I do. Now over the years, in the beginning I did not, but over the years I've learned I'm learning every day, but every single aspect of anticipated costs, sample costs, mold costs, production costs. And so I really only take on projects where the vessel is custom. So right off the bat, the client knows that that's the direction we're going. I provide them with some initial numbers where there were, creating the glass in the US or in China or in Mexico. Those numbers are vastly different. Mm-hmm. So it's really a conversation with the client and then, us ballparking, really roughing out costs to ensure that when I do pitch you this bottle and I do take the time to create this design, that it is going to go somewhere. And then I'm not going to pitch it and you're like, ooh, this is too expensive. We're going to do stock now. Because that would just break my heart,
Yeah. No, for sure. And when we're looking at like just the glass, regardless of what country is being produced in, what makes that production more expensive? Like what's going to be the one thing that's going to push you over the edge?
Yeah, it could be a bunch of different factors. Right off the bat, is where it's being produced. It's producing glass in the States is one of the most expensive areas or regions to produce glass. But outside of the origin point of where the facility is located, if it's colored, if it weighs over a certain amount, if it has a complex, say, if it's a GPI, which is like a screw cap, as opposed to just a bar top, which is just like a cork mechanic, which you see on most bottles. Or if there's decoration applied directly to the glass after the glass is made. So that kicks up cost greatly. But those are kind of the three things. It's weight, and then, decorative finish after the glass is produced, which drives up cost.
Is the amount of glass on the bottom of the bottle, is that still a thing? Like the bigger it is, then the more expensive the liquor?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. That was the whole, the perspective for many years. Like, the thicker the glass bottle, the more expensive it's going to look. Yeah. But over the years, consumers have become more eco-friendly. They don't care about that as much anymore. I mean, I think it was Johnny Walker just released like one of the lightest bottles. Did you see that?
Yeah. It's like a teardrop, and it's like encased in wood. It's crazy.
Yeah, so now it's become something that people value and people love. They don't want to lug around an 800-gram bottle. But at the same time, there's still a huge market for having a big, thick base at the bottom, and how that feels in the hand and how that handles when you're pouring a cocktail or you're a bartender and flipping it around. It just depends on, your price, your retail price and your demographic of your product. So distinctly different with each brand created.
And talking about Johnny Walker's lightest bottle, is there any work out there that you look at and you're like, damn it, I wish I would have done that. Like, I wish I would have worked on that project. Is there like one of those out there?
Yeah, there are still a few. It happens less and less over the years. But I think I just actually saw one. There's just been this resurrection of people taking old whiskey brands that were around in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and then resurrecting them, like kind of refreshing the label, bringing the glass back to life, making it new again, like filtering it through kind of a contemporary lens. I think Old Granddad just released something, and I saw it, and I was like, I wish I could have done that. So maybe I'll send him a cold email. Please come to me for the next one, because that kind of stuff is just like, it's in my soul, man. Like, I've always had a huge affinity for all things old and antiquated. My house looks like a mix between your grandmother's home and an antique museum. It's I don't know how my 3-year-old son doesn't go around and break everything. He's learned the ropes, man. So it's projects like that I love.
Okay, that's cool. And then you're moving into film, videography.
Yeah.
Like, what's that jump like? Like, did you start testing stuff out, or did a client go, "Hey, can you do this?" And you're like, "I'll figure it out."
Yeah. So it started in a mix of that. Warbringer, the bourbon that I mentioned earlier. So they're located in California. Many years ago, we started dabbling in doing like reels for social media and also having some fun with commercials. And I was like, man, I really love doing this. Like, being able to write the voiceovers and then develop these kind of weird off the wall concepts for ads and videos. I really fell in love with having fun with. I just love to copyright. So a lot of the narration is like my bread and butter. It's kind of where my heart's at in terms of what I offer and what I bring to that. And then I found a videographer that I really love working with. It's just he's another one-man show. And so me and him have just been like, we've joined forces. The studio is about to relaunch our website for the first time in 10 years with a new mark, completely new design, a couple new projects, and then also peppering in that cinematography, those little examples. But it's just an opportunity to show that brand and how it comes to life through video. You're bringing in color. It's a different set of environments. It's different characters, different settings. It's just really fun to not do the same thing over and over again.
Did you study graphic design or product development?
Yeah. I went to school for a broad communication design, graduated with it. So specifically kind of graphic design. And then during, I would say junior, senior year of college, I fell in love with package design specifically. I've always loved like that tactile, like good you hold in your hand. You're like, wow, this little thing is an amalgamation of 50 hours of work, of 100 hours of work, whatever it is, like a little trophy almost.
Yeah.
At the end. And so I fell in love with it in college. And then I went to New York after college on like a small scholarship, and then got placed at an agency, and then popped around to 3 or 4 while I was there, and came back and started my own thing. And just, it's been package design for, I would say, 15 years. Yeah.
I don't know, of all the disciplines, like packaging is so much fun, right? Because you get to develop something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And then you get to pull people in just by what you create, right? People are going to make a decision whether they're going to buy that or not. It's not like a website where people can click and click out. And it's like, all right, well, they kind of move along, but like you're making a full commitment as a consumer to this product. And I love it.
Yeah, you're buying it or you're not. And it's solely, I mean, there are a lot of exceptions out there where I'm like, how is that brand so big? The bottle is so ugly. So there, and you know, that could be just because the product within is so great that it doesn't matter what the packaging looks like to a degree. But there are a few of those out there. But most of the time, it is the look, man. It is the story and the feel, and you know, offering something just unique that's on the shelf.
Are you talking about Tito's? Is that what I'm hearing?
Tito's is a great example, man. I mean, I think what really helped that brand is they were maybe the first one to do the handcrafted movement and spirits lasted a long time. And now people they stopped buying, like believing in it, because everything was handcraft and everything was small batch. And then people started to do more research, I think, into like the background of some of these brands and be like, hey, you sourced this product at a distillery that makes, you know, a huge amount of product for other brands. Like it's not family owned, it's not small batch. So I think that's what helped Tito's a lot, is that they were there and it's tried and true. They are a handcrafted vodka. They coined it.
You talk about copy a lot, which is insane, because I love packaging, but copy I think is like my go-to, because you know, if I get a brief from a client, it's like, how can I change this? How can I change this to improve the packaging, right? To improve that conversation with the customer directly on the packaging, or can this copy, is this copy enough?
Yeah.
Do you use like ChatGPT in your copywriting at this point? Have you tested that out?
I do use it as like a very smart intern. It's still very inhuman to a degree. Even if you say, write more human, write in a more, it's still like, but it does help you like, kind of, it rephrases things differently. We're like, oh, I like those 3 words together, or I like this sentence. So it's a really good, like, free assistant or whatever it may be. But I don't adhere or like hinge myself on it anyway. Same thing with like AI illustration or anything like that. It's good for strategy. It's good for brainstorming. I've seen AI generated package designs and stuff, and I still think they're shit. So that's good for 100%. Me. Worried about the future, but it hasn't come yet. So yeah.
No, I've got like Chat GPT open 24/7 on here, and whether it's like I might be writing something. And, like when you're writing, you might have like an idea and you're like, I don't know how to put that to words. I just throw it in there. Yeah. I might not even hit return. I just throw it in there and I keep going. And then I'll be like, oh, maybe it's like this. I'll throw that in there and I'll be, hey, can you combine these things and make it make sense to me? And it comes back with something.
Yeah.
That's not perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll be like, oh, I like this. Can you pull this and like elaborate a little bit more? Maybe change some of these words. And all of a sudden you're putting together text that has some like meaning to it, and you can pull and plug.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are afraid, like, oh, it's just going to do all of it. No, it's like, it's just like, it's an intern.
Yeah.
It's like you just throw ideas at it.
Yeah. If you're letting it do all of it, I don't think you're going to, I mean, for me anyways, you're not going to find those gems, and it's not going to bring it all together and sound super, I don't even know what the word for it. I don't think different is the right word for it, but there's just a certain way it carries itself when you're reading something. So like when I present a brand, I always start with this brand strategy. It's like a paragraph or 2 paragraphs long that summarize everything that I'm going to share about the brand, like the attitude, where it comes from, what the personality is. Sometimes I personify these brands as actual characters, movie characters even. I did a brand a few years ago where I was like, this is Tom Hardy from Lawless. So while I was building this brand out, I just filtered and acted like I was kind of like, it's almost like method acting, but method designing. Yeah. I don't know. And then that character comes through in the tone of voice and the character and the material selections and everything like that. But yeah, I don't lean on it as a crutch, that's for sure. And I hope no designer does, because you're not going to really get anything great out of it if you're doing that.
No, and that's why I like it for copy, right? It's just like, here's my ideas.
Yeah.
Make it make sense. And then I'll look back at it, and it's super helpful in that sense, but it's never, hey, can you do this for me?
It's great
if it could.
For that Western brand I mentioned, Warbringer, the whole thing is language writing is, I do all the stuff for that brand in terms of after the pack is done, after the brand, the marketing, the commercials and stuff. So I always like writing language for that brand, because it's very it's a very unique, old school cowboy, no bullshit verbiage. And so I toss those lines into GPT sometimes, and I say, hey, give me 5 more in this realm. And then sometimes it surprises me and it uses a word or phrase, and I'm like, shit, that's cool. Bonafide or, ruckus or whatever it may be, just like that one word. Damn, that's a good one. Yeah, it fits.
I mean, you're talking about Tom Hardy and connecting brands to specific people or characters and these personas. Can you just do a quick run through? I know you've developed this over years, so it's not a quick thing, but how do you create that brand story? What are the processes, or what's the critical part of there?
I mean, honestly, there's, as you would probably expect, there's no exact format, right? There's no exact structure, because brands come to me differently with different initial tools that they have. Some come with nothing, some come with a single name that means something, or they just come with a single idea. So it's really, it starts there, and then I play with, it's really a lot of copywriting, and I flesh out what that means past that point. Gallivanter. So, this one started with the name, all Gallivanter meaning a sense of wandering without purpose in kind of a joyous fashion, traversing the world's landscape, in a sense of wanting to explore and find adventure. And so that one word translated everything across the label, to the label design, to the slogan, which I wrote, that says the horizon awaits. Yeah. It's and then capturing even the essence of this bottle that has this modulated swirl line work that goes up. This whole wandering, free, loss, free of constraint, right? So that one word translated to the entire package design, and that happens consistently throughout everything I do. The initial, foundation, of whether it be a name or a single sentence, is fleshed out, and then I expand upon it, and then hit it with every detail from closure to glass to label, and try to reinforce those things.
Dude, this bottle is insane. I was going to say it's probably one of your simpler bottles, and simpler, more minimal, I guess.
Yeah.
But as I'm scrolling through and I look at the lid, right? I look at the cap.
Yeah.
And then, crazy enough, the bottom of the bottle.
Yeah.
It's who does that?
Yeah, so that's the thing, is, man, any little hidden gems I can possibly kind of hide, even if the label feels, like you said, more simple than the other stuff I've done, there's still a lot to be found. So I always do that. It is, I do pride myself on over delivering, as I said, not just because, not just in terms of packing a label full of shit, but over delivering in terms of even the nuances, the tiny things. Everything means something. I love everything to mean something. So when an owner is walking around with their bottle at their distillery or tasting room, people ask them a question, they have an answer, they have a reason why.
Do you, and I'm looking at this label, right? You've got it looks like a UV, there's an embossing, maybe a silk screen on that blue, I'm not sure. And then you've got the embossed frame. There's a whole lot going on just on that label as well.
Yeah. It's I print production I handle. And so that's me calling out all those areas. And, it took me a while to figure out what works, what can be executed. For example, if you emboss too close to the edge of a label, you're going to get that label it's going to peel off eventually. Mm-hmm. There's just little tiny things like that you learn along the way, but I love speccing it for print, because that's part of bringing it to life in mimicking that character of that brand, whether it be paper textures, super gritty, super textured to reinforce, if it's from the mountains and it's inspired by, old, whatever it is, just a crafted general store or whatever it may be. Pulling in some linen paper texture that kind of brings in the materials that might have existed in that store into the package design. So, it's important for me to do it. Yeah.
All right. So you're designing it.
Yeah.
And then you personally are doing the production files as well?
Yes.
Or yeah?
Yes.
Dude, I love that because
thank you.
right. Like a lot of times you get, especially when you're a younger designer, you're like focused on the design part of it. And you're like, man, this, I dialed it all in. These renders look amazing. Customer approved it. Yeah. And you're like, all right, now I'm going to move on to the next project. Meanwhile, you're handing off your baby to somebody else that doesn't have like the full vision. And they might be like, oh, you know what? If I move this a little bit, it'll save them money. And then like all of a sudden when it goes to production, you show up and you're like, what happened?
Yeah. And that's why, like, it's not even being like, ooh, this is mine, I must do it all. Or like, it's just a sense of it has to be done. Like if you're going to come to somebody to execute a vision, why not just go all the way through with it? And so that's going all the way through with it in my mind is like, the printed product is part of that. I just had a client, and this happens often, very rarely do I just pass off files. I usually which kind of makes me indispensable, which is another part of the studio, but I'm the glue that introduces the client to all these vendors, to glass, to closure, to shipper cartons, to print production. And so I very rarely, and this happened, that they're like, hey, we found a different printer, which is totally good, totally fine. And then I passed off files and they came back to me and they're like, hey, we amended the foil plate to make it more universal to apply to other SKUs. And they're like, whoa, like it didn't like, it was really unbalanced. It impacted the design negatively. Like one half of the side was foiled and the other half of the label wasn't. It just had no sense of, symmetry. And the design was very symmetrical. And so like got on the phone and we talked it out and they were great, very understanding. And we found a middle ground of like, striking one plate and then keeping some other aspects and essentially saving it. So, it is a fine line between good and great.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I had a call this morning with a designer working with an agency, and I'm on the production side of this particular project. And it's like, okay, well, let me make sure I understand what your vision is. You're like, what are you thinking? These are materials. We're going to do like an all over custom emboss, deboss, like multi-level emboss happening here.
And they do this before you did the design?
No. So in this case, I'm working with a designer and his client, and I'm on the production side of this one. So this one I'm going to help manufacture. Yeah. So knowing the design side of it's like, okay, well, we can do this. Here's where your costs are going to go. Are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to do this. All right, perfect. So then now I have like a clear picture. And it's like, all right, we can do it this way. We can do a roller. We can do a plate. Yeah. And just kind of like fine tuning all those details with the creative to make sure that they're getting exactly what they want. Otherwise, right, if it's just handed off to somebody else, it's like, wow, I can save money here. And all of a sudden by the time you get it, it's.
Yeah. Did they just take the X and print it out? Like, no, just crying in the rain on your knees.
No, exactly.
Yeah, luckily that's never happened where I've had a client take something and just like print it with, alpha graphics or whatever. It is about those final little touches, man, like the varnish and the embossing. I've been heavy into, if you're familiar with the effect of chisel embossing, where they actually bevel the letters and then emboss it. That was like really beneficial on black steel. So black steel bourbon was developed for Dr. Disrespect. But anyways, we developed this bourbon for him. And that effect alone, the chisel embossing on the large black and steel really made that come to life. I think if it was just a flat foil emboss, it would not have succeeded as well as it did. I think that, they've made 2 batches so far and they've each sold out in 24 hours. I mean, a lot of that is because of the connection, but also if the bottle looked like shit, I'm sure it wouldn't have sold. So
100%. And so like you're talking production side, you're talking like the chisel. So it gives you like this, I mean, it looks like steel, right? It gives it like that metal look.
Exactly.
What's your go-to right now? Like what's one process that you are like in love with right now?
Yeah, I mean, I have been using the chisel emboss. I think you're going to see like 4 projects come out. And you're like, God damn, this guy really likes chisel embossing. But I burned myself out on it a little bit. I'm very self-aware, I think, and so I know like, okay, let's put that to the side a little bit and find other ways to solve it. Right now, I'm working on 8 different top to bottom custom bottle brands, bespoke bottles, all that stuff, and I'm really trying to pepper in more materials than just glass and metal. And so like working with faux leather paper stocks, there's been Avery Dennison and Wausau are two huge paper stock companies, and they've had them come out, but now I'm just now utilizing them. Where like these paper stocks look like a fabric, or they look like cloth, they look like denim jeans. So trying to figure out how to work those in without forcing it. I mean, it has to make sense, right? It has to make sense in the story. But I would say that that's kind of what I'm into right now, is exploring, going past 2 or 3 different materials and making them all work together. Wood, metal, Zamic, resin closures, all this kind of stuff, and figuring that out.
Cool. Do you need to take a call or anything, man?
No, I don't know how to turn off my. I don't know how to turn it off. The iMessaging on the desktop, like I'll force close it, and it won't care. Sorry, man. Let me see if I can. Here you go.
No, that's cool.
I bet because you're hearing that. I guess I didn't know you were hearing that.
Yeah, for sure. I get this. I get the same thing on mine. I'm like, if it goes off on my phone, I turn off my phone, and then it just pops up on my desktop or my iPad, like in the other room, and it's just like a drag.
I know. Okay, so I turned off. I hit alerts. So, sorry, audience, for all the dings.
No,
I'm an important guy. No, actually, it's just
you're like a doctor.
It's just us talking about having cocktails later. Honestly, it has nothing to do with even work. It's Friday, guys. It's Friday.
It is Friday, man. Hey, all right. So, you say that you take on like 12 clients a year. Is that still true?
So I do. So to answer your question, I do take on about only 12 to 15 new brands yearly, and then I dedicate the rest of the time to reoccurring clients. So I have clients that go back as far as when I first started the studio, like 2014, that I work with a regular basis, and then clients that I've developed brands for. They kind of take priority in my mind, and if they come back and say, "Hey, we have a new brand," I kind of push them in like to the front of the line. So they, seniority is kind of treated with respect here. Yeah.
I interviewed this guy who runs a one-man agency called Stickman Design. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Stickman.
I'm not, yeah.
But he's out of Scotland, and he just did this one bottle. Like it was like a whiskey thing, and there's only one of them. I think it's sold. A bottle sold for like $30,000 or something like that.
Very cool.
And it had he did like a one piece molded fiber like wrap on the bottle, and it had like a drop in there.
I am so sorry, man. I don't know how to turn off my computer. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, I can clip that stuff out, man. No, but like he's a one-man show, and he's kind of doing the same thing where he's doing video now, and he's doing like all these other things.
Yeah.
Do you see are you seeing more and more designers just working on their own, like their one niche, and kind of like the agency model being old at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I do see a lot of people that they hinge themselves on a specific look, or which I think bodes well for a lot of designers. Like Jessica Hish, John Schubert, God, I could name. There's so many that have a specific like look, right? Like a very specific style. I mean, I know I have a shared continuity, but I think the agency look, as far as like, hey, these are all very distinctly different. That is like not seen very much unless you get to very large scale agencies where there's 20 or 30 people under that umbrella. But I do feel like that's being phased out quite a bit. And I love not leaning on the same illustration style, the same typefaces or anything like that. For me personally, it makes the work more exciting. But some people just do it's so iconic to them. Kevin Kentrell is a great example. He has a beautiful style that is uniquely him. People have tried to copy it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, like, you can tell, like, this is a copy. This is not, it doesn't come from his hand. And so like that works very well for some people.
So do you find yourself competing against these bigger agencies?
I do. I don't think I mean, to my knowledge, I'm not competing against like direct other designer. And I actually don't know of any, very many single designer shops that offer full service from start to finish, handling all aspects, wearing all the hats. Mm-hmm. It's more rare now.
Knowing your history, knowing the project that you work on, kind of like the style or this continuity that you have of your creative. Let's say if Elon reached out to you and said he needed to redesign Tesla.
Yeah.
Is this something you'd be like, no, I'm the wrong guy? Or is that something you like jump in like, yeah, 100%?
That's a tough question. Okay, so I that's a really dumb thing to turn down. Like, I don't do automotive. That's not even my world at all. But
Right.
to have that connection, politics aside, I feel like, I was invested in Tesla for a long time, but I feel like he's got sidetracked over the years. That's a whole different story. But, looking past that point, if he were to come to me and want to work together, I would find a reason. I would figure out how we could make that happen. Maybe convince him to open up a distillery that is launched into space. I don't know, whatever.
he did an alcohol.
He did? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. I think it might have been like a Tesla vodka or something.
Damn. Okay, yeah, I didn't know that.
You have to look at that. It was a pretty cool. And it was a cool bottle too. It was, it was definitely super modern. So, hey man, I appreciate you being on here. Like, what if somebody wants to reach out to you, learn more about you, and have you work on a project? First off, where can they find you?
Yep. ChadMichaelStudio.com, or Instagram is always a big one. It hasn't, the algorithms all changed, so it's like it doesn't do what it used to do. But Chad Michael Studio, everything is very pretentious. name. You can find it wherever you want. And then, that you reach out to me directly. As I said, like we have 3 people that work in the studio, but I am always the one that takes point on that kind of stuff. So, reach out to me. Let's build a brand together.
And then who is the perfect client for you?
Someone that has full trust, someone that has seen our work and wants us to do what we're good at. And that, probably has, it's about the product as well. So, is doing something uniquely different with the product itself. Maybe it's different ingredients than you normally see in the market, or they're barreling it in a different way. I really love finding clients that are doing something really odd with the product itself, because then it just makes for a cooler story. You just have longer legs when it comes to the brand and package design.